Hi everyone, welcome to Tom's Manshed. Now this is part 2 of a 2-part sort of video series I'm doing on just what you can do on a 3D printer. Now I've already done part 1, check out that up here, and that is on ornamental objects like little figurines and fun things like puzzles and that, but objects that don't have actually any use other than, good eye candy and stuff like that. But there are tons and tons and tons of things you can print that actually do have a use. And sometimes the designs you get online are better than the original ones made by manufacturers, and I'll show you what I mean shortly with that. So first of all, in that, one of the things I'll be showing, and I'm going to save this to the end, is this. Now, this is called a lithophane. It's a lamp, but it's a lithophane. Now, if you want to Google that now, by all means, if you don't know what it means, and you'll see exactly how fascinating these things are. But I'm going to save that to the end, because it's probably the most interesting of these items. So stay tuned to the very end, and I'll show you that, how it works in detail. Now, on part 1 of this 2-part series, like I said, I showed you loads of DC and Marvel superhero characters I've printed that live on the shelf with me here in the Manshed right behind me. Now, there's some useful items that I couldn't have put them on the shelves without, and I would have to have bought some shelf brackets. So let's whiz over there now and look at the shelf brackets and a paint rack I made as well, and I'll show you them in detail. Now, I showed you these figurines in the part 1, but if you look, the shelves that they're on, the brackets, all these brackets, and over here from the top, so I've got 1 shelf, 2 shelf, 3 shelf, 4 shelf, all full of parts. That's the paint rack that I told you about earlier. But yeah, these shelf brackets, it's a bit hard to show you, but even the countersunk bits underneath, if you want to screw into the wood of the shelf, even the countersunk bit is printed on the printer. No need to countersink them, and I think they look quite neat. So as you saw there, shelf brackets, great for. There's loads and loads of different designs. There's ones that just sit fully under the shelf with swirly bits. There's all sorts of really modern ones. There's ones that go on pins and that. I printed them where the shelf sort of sits inside, and you can set the size to whatever you want. I had a 6-inch wide shelving, so I made them to fit exactly 6-inch wide. Tons and tons of them on Thingiverse. And as I showed you over there, this paint rack for holding all the little bottles of Vallejo paint that I used to paint the characters. Now, believe it or not, this was the longest single print I did. The Liberator Starship from Blake 7 series that I featured in part 1 took the longest because that was in loads and loads of different parts. So if you had to put all the time it took to print, you had to basically make yourself a construction kit first. If you had all them up, that was probably that one definitely took the longest. And then what until recently was the second longest was the Skull dice roller, again featured in part 1. But then I've just printed this because I've just bought a load of new little paint pots and put the shelves up behind me. So I saw this on Thingiverse, which is just to hold them little paint pots. Now that doesn't look as much to print as plastic in it or time as the skull, does it? You'd think that skull would take longer, but it didn't. This took something like 27 hours to print. Why, I don't know. Probably because there's so many intricate sort of little bits, and it's moving from one place to another, and there's little supports inside. But again, 27 hours at the amount of electricity it uses is still next to nothing, and I don't think it actually used much filament. Well, I know for a fact it didn't, because I was running very low on the spool, and I still had loads left after this. So yeah, you can see that each one's got its own little supports inside. I haven't even bothered taking the stringing off this. You can get rid of all this stringing by sanding or blowing a hot air gun over it, but there's just no need. It just holds paint, and once all the paint's in, you can't see it. So something else I skimmed over in an earlier video a few months ago are parts that you can print for your actual 3D printer. So I've done loads and loads in a lovely silky yellow gold, and I think it makes the printer look better. But a lot of these parts are functional as well. So let's whiz over to the printer now, and I'll show you some of the parts I've printed for that. So here's the 3D printer that I've had since the beginning of this year. So we'll start with the bottom and work our way up. This bit here is a new cover for the fans, because I've altered the fans. Again, if you check up here, I'll put a link to a video I did on swapping the fans. They work perfectly fine, the printer works fine with the stock fans, but it is very, very noisy. So if you put these fans in, it makes it unbelievably quiet. It's totally inaudible, really. You have to put this in because they are a deeper fan, so that needs to go there. And of course, because of that, you need to raise it up. So all these parts, these legs, these raised up legs, were printed on the 3D printer, and that, of course. And these drawers are extra storage drawers. You can see I put these with the lattice sides, or you can put them with solid sides. There's loads of different ones of these. I keep some tools in there. Here's another extra one. And the stock drawer that comes with the printer, it has a foam insert normally, so I printed this yellow insert which holds the tools a lot better. Now parts like this cover are purely decorative, but as you can see it looks a lot better than just a stock black cover, but there's no actual function in that part, nor is there in that one there. Again, it's just a fancy work cover to cover the QR code sticker. But all these, this bit here, it's a cooling cover for the fan, and it doesn't block the fan. There is a big air inlet at the top there, which is ample for the fan. Doesn't hurt it in any way, but that's for the hot end cooling fan, and it lowers the noise a tiny bit. I've shown that in one of my other videos. This clip here, so that does have a function. This clip here holds this ribbon cable and your Bowden tube. This one here holds this ribbon cable and is a guide, bridges that gap there between the run out sensor and the extruder, so it's easier to push your filament through. And this one here is a support for this ribbon cable, stops it getting in the way. So I think that's about it. I think that's all the parts I've printed for the printer. There's loads of, sorry, these bits here, these infill stripes, as well as looking nice, it stops little bits getting inside the extrusion there. So all them printed on this printer for this printer. So again, as you can see, loads and loads to print for printers themselves, and the stuff for every make of printer in there, every popular make. There will be a load of upgrades and that you can do. This was another one I did. It was again, look at that lovely sort of like the tracks of a tank really, but an articulated, and it's like a guide that you put the ribbon cable in at the back to stop it getting snagged. I had a bit of trouble with this. I couldn't get it to line up properly, hence using that, just that thing that holds it high up. But again, it shows you what can be done. Another thing, I've got this, an Alexa show. When it's just on the, if you've got one, as you know, when it's on the...
Military veterans have been helping with the experimental reconstruction.
I'll just unplug it. When it's just plugged in on the table in front of you, it's just at a fixed angle. There's no way of angling it properly. So, on Thingiverse, there are these little stand, and you can put it at any angle you like. And I put some non-slip adhesive stuff on their little rubber balls that grip it to the table, and that sits in front of me under my monitor, and I can set the angle to whatever I like. So I'll reconnect that up later. What else? This thing. Now, this didn't turn out brilliant on the top. I was trying to experiment with two different colours, and as you can see, the back is great. And then as it got to this sort of layer, I stopped the print and put a different colour in, which you can do with this printer of mine, just to do this top layer, thinking, oh, it'll look great. And most of it worked out fine, but certain bits here didn't. So this is filler. So I've had to fill these in because I was going to paint over it. But there's no real need. I just hanged it up in the garage. And as you can see, it's a little checker for bolts. M3, M4, so you can see which size bolt it is and the length of, you can put your, for the nuts and the bolts up there to check the thing. Again, you don't really need it. It was just something to print. Now, another thing I've done is these boxes. Now this, again, in another video, check up here for the link for that. I did a full review on this. It's a great little soldering iron called a pine sill. But it doesn't come in a proper case. It just comes in like a cardboard slide out thing. So I printed this. And it can hold the soldering iron itself with one blade in it. And there's space for two other blades there. And this bit here, you just pull it out. This bit with the ball bearing on. Slide it in that bit there. I haven't put these together yet. I need to just put a bit of wire through there to make the hinge. But you put that bit in there, and then that acts as a holder for your soldering iron, and it's being a bore race, it's just touching the metal, it's not touching the plastic, so it won't get hot. And then you just take it out, store it in the lid, put your soldering iron back, so there's space for two extra blades as well as the blade from the soldering iron for that, and a different one printed for the same thing. Holds the pine sill in the side, and four different tips it will hold. So that other one holds 3, this holds 4. Different design. This is called the flask type design. Slide that off there, comes off. So that was that. Sticking with the boxes, another review I did recently was on an electric screwdriver called what was it called? Can't remember now. A wow stick. Again, check out the link here for a review on that. Now that comes with quite a nice magnetic case like this, and all the bits you get with it are in these tubes. And you've got to slide this tube out, and all the bits are held in there. It's quite a clever sort of way of doing it, but in that case that I just showed you, there's only room for the wow stick itself and one of those tubes. So you've got to decide which set of tips you want to carry around and keep the other two somewhere else. It'd be much handier in a box that held them all. So did a search on Thingiverse. There it is. This box. came out really well. I printed the hinges in black, and as you can see, this hinge here, it's got a cutout there, and that goes round the bottom bolt, and it's really cleverly designed. They act as catches like that, so you swing them up. The hinges this side, I've just got a full hole all the way through, and you just need the right size M3 bolts. You don't need a nut because it's designed so that it cuts its thread into the plastic, so you don't even need the nuts. And as you can see, when you open it up, and it allows them hinges to do that, it's got room for the wow stick and all 56 of the tips that you get with it. So you've got these 4 here. These are your elongated ones for getting inside long depth holes, and probably your most common size is a Phillips head, a straight head, a hex head, and then you've got all your other ones there, but all in one place. Wouldn't it have been a lot better if Wow Stick provided something like that, and carrying the Wow Stick round and every bit that comes with it, instead of not having to pick and choose between them? So again, great. Sticking with the boxes, whoops. This one, recently bought on a load of new paintbrushes for the figurines. This reminds me of school. I used to have a pencil case like this out of wood many years ago, and I've made this out of a filament that changes colour in ultraviolet light. Again, I showed this in the previous video, but I'll show it again now. It's not very sunny today, so I'm just going to hold it out for a bit, but I have filmed a bit earlier on, and I'll last week when it was sunny, and I'll show you that. But as you can see already, when you hold it out, it started turning pink under ultraviolet light. I'll show you that bit that I filmed last week when it was an intensely hot day, and it was like round about midday with the UV at its highest, and just see how deep a pink and how quick it turns. So I filmed this pencil case last week. Here it is held under the table. You can see it's just white when it's out of the UV light. But as soon as I take it into the sun, and this was a really hot day, like I say, and I think it was about noon, and yeah, you can see how instantly and what deep shade of pink it turns as soon as UV light hits it. So yeah, and this was about 3 years old, this filament, so it's lasted well. Once you've printed it and done this a few times, it does seem to wear off. You can see where my finger has been there, left the white mark, and also inside where it's been protected from the light, it's still white. But yeah, once you've used it a few times, it does seem to diminish. I printed a vase once, and after a few times of use, it just totally lost its ability, but it does hold up well on the reel and is very effective, as you can see. So yeah, a fun feature, but it is a useful item. You just can print it out of anything you like. You don't have to use, obviously, UV changing filament. Mentioned the soldering iron earlier on, the pine sill. Couple of soldering aids. This thing here, a wire holder. If you're just soldering 2 wires together, you can put them in here like that. Get them in these slots and hold them while you solder, and a varying size slots for different wire gauges. And again, I've put the rubberized coating on the thing so it grips to the table. If you don't like that soldering aid, this one held together, didn't have any rubber bands, so I used my wife's hairband things. And again, that can grip 2 pieces of wire or components. And I've put the same stuff underneath. It sticks to the table really well while you're soldering. These things are handy. Little, when you're pulling your sellotape out and you want to tear it off, if you haven't got the little table stand with the little serrated teeth, print one of these. various sizes. That's for a small roll. And again, you hold it together with a rubber band, put it on your roll, and this is a roll of masking tape. I've cut this down the centre because I wanted it in 2 equal gaps, but I'll show you exactly what I mean. That gets a serrated edge and you can tear it off. Again, a fun thing to do. One of the things you will do when you first start printing is do some test prints. Now, what a test print is, certain filaments, different manufacturers like different temperatures. Most of them around about 200 degrees, 210 degrees that you print at. But some specify a different temperature, particularly if you're using different filaments like PETG, nylon, ABS. I'll be going into them very, very shortly. But you do a test print. So you do a tower. I haven't got one of them to show you, but it's like a test tower with like 100 degrees, 110 degrees, 120 degrees or whatever. And you can set in your software that each level it'll print at a different temperature, and then you can examine it and find out which is the best temperature to print that filament at. Another 2 test prints are, there was this one, which is for testing bridging. And as you can see, there's no, what it just does one strand there and getting bigger and bigger and bigger gaps, and it'll test how good it is. But if you look at that, each one of them is just one extrusion, 1.4 or whatever it is diameter string across, and you can see it's done that perfectly. So that's that. And another test print you can do, quite a common one. Again, there are 100 different test cubes and things. Is this one, which tests various things. There you can see hole test. How accurately will it print a hole? These other things there, down there. These bits here, these bridges, again, see how far it can go. These columns here, tiny columns, how accurate can it do that? And these overhangs, this is quite important. You can see the degrees, we'll get it in focus, written on there, hopefully. And that shows you 50, 60, 70, 80 or so overhang, and you can see how far on an object it will overhang before it starts stringing. If you look under there, it is starting to struggle here, but right up until there, right up till a 50-degree overhang, it was a really clean print. So that you know that any angle in anything you print 50 or over will probably need supports, or will need supports, but anything less than that, you'll be okay. So that is a test print on that, and you can see how really nice it printed that. You can see the support structure inside there. But yeah, so that's a test print. Another thing, pen holders or pencil holders. First one I did, this was on my previous printer, CR10, it's a little skull. I did it a bit small so it only holds pencils, but again, if you look at the intricacy of that, little tiny gaps, and it printed beautifully. But you can enlarge that. Again, the bigger you go, the longer it takes to print. That's one. And a bit more useful ones, Terminator T800 pen holder. That's from a silver one, silver PLA, and a Stormtrooper one. As you can see, I painted that not very well, you can see, but again, print turned out okay. I just sprayed it white gloss and black, and as part from being decorative, it has got a use, as you can see. Another very handy thing to have a 3D printer for is hobby stuff for your hobbies. I've already showed you that paint rack. But another one of my hobbies is radio control models. I fly radio control models. Had since I was a little kid. And I've recently bought a new transmitter, and it comes in a beautiful foam protective case. I'll show you this first of all. I can't resist this. It's amazing what you can do to these things now. Normally when you turn it on, it comes on with a boring statement, but you can change the voice. Listen.
You turned me on. Motor armed. Aileron low. Elevator low. 0 feet.
I mean, this one's got a vario that reads out your height and if you're going up or down.
0 feet. Vario off.
I'll turn that off. But listen to this for a bit of fun.
I'll let you flick that switch again. Oh, I like that one. Do it again.
And there's another one that I can't play because it's got the an F word in it, all effed up. So I don't play that. But yeah, but like I say, it comes in this foam case, but there's no handles on it. So you'd have to carry it around like that. So printed these handles from a material called TPU. I'll show you that very, very shortly. But a nice flexible handle. Again, that's on Thingiverse. Just drill 2 holes in the top, mount that, glue it on. You've got a means of carrying it. And also for the radio control hobby, I printed this wheel for a glider. I've got a glider called the Volantex ASW28. Typed into Thingiverse, that model name, various parts for that come up. So even specific models, somebody has designed something, and this is an improvement on the wheel that you get with it. I'll show you what I mean shortly. In fact, let's go and have a look at now. I'll show you the model, and I'll show you a battery tray as well that I printed for that, and I'll explain what this is for. So as I mentioned, this bit here, this battery tray, it extends. It's a bit hard to see because it's in white against the white fuselage anyway, but I printed this battery tray to replace the plywood one of the original, and it goes right back to there. You screw it through the side here, through the 2 screws, and I've put some velcro straps, and the battery fits in there perfectly, much neater than the plywood one that comes with it. And one of the faults of this ASW28 is because the wheel there is covered in this foam sort of shroud, it brings it quite forward, and this model is well known for being nose heavy, so you need to put your battery back as far as possible. I'm okay because I've got it and I mount it at an angle there, and it is okay. But if you like, you can print this instead of the conventional wheel. You can print this. Now, this didn't come out great for some reason. As you can see, lots of lines in there. But the wheel and the tyre did, and you can see the tyre is in TPU. But I never got around to actually using this because I managed to mount the battery different in there. But you could take that wheel out, replace it with that one, and that would enable you to take that bit out and move the whole thing a bit further back, enabling the battery to go further back to get the centre of gravity right. So again, 2 parts available just for one particular model. So as you saw there, this tyre is made out of TPU, like a rubbery material, as are the handles on that box. Also, something I've used TPU for recently is, first of all, I made my wife, she was having trouble getting lids off bottles and stuff. She always brings me the big lemonade bottles to take the lid off. Little thing like that. Just, you can see it's serrated edges in there. Spring it. I made this out of PETG because it is harder than PLA. Again, I'm going to show you that very, very shortly. A few different materials you can print with. But as you can see, it's a bottle opener, a jar, bottle lid opener. It's a bottle opener for getting like beer bottle caps off. And there's also a prize up ring pull thing or whatever there. And she's used this quite often for getting beer caps off. I haven't got one now to a bottle with a cap off that I can show you, but I can assure you, even though it's just plastic, it works fine pulling that off. But another use for that TPU, that rubberized material, was this, a bigger holder. Now I just made this out of PLA, it's not PETG, but this has got a separate insert, again made out of TPU. Now you can see here how flexible that is. It's like a rubber material. And this print on Thingiverse comes in 2 parts, and again it's come out absolutely beautiful. This, I don't know whether you can see there, but there's no sort of lines really apparent. It's as smooth as silk, and this came out fantastic as well. And that just goes in there and you glue it in. I haven't glued it in yet, but that fits like a glove. The precision there, if you look in this corner here, how it fits is really good. And that of course grips your jars of 3 different sizes. So like I said, that material is called TPU. So I'm just going to go through some more materials now. Oh, little thing here I just found, forget that. Little tiny stuff like that. That is for if your mask, your face mask for COVID or whatever, is a bit too slack, and it is on my wife, that she puts it over her ears and it's still a bit sort of slack. So you just string the 2 things around there behind your head and it holds it a bit tighter. I made her a load of little clips. They literally take minutes to print because they're just a few layers thick and very, very small. Little tiny things like that. Oh, another thing I found here on the bench. I'm surrounded with stuff that I've put here ready for this, making this video, and I'm forgetting half of it. Another really handy thing, if you've got shoes that will fit, and I haven't, but I ran myself off these. I'm fed up of breaking shoelaces and that. So I printed these off, again out of TPU, and they're like fasteners that go in place of your laces. But all the trainers and things I have, even though they're very thin, these to go through, they won't quite fit through the eyes. They're really, really, really tight. So I could alter them, I could cut a bit off on that, but I've just not got around to it yet. But basically they go in place of your lace. And again, you print them in various sizes. Loads of files come with the print, different designs. They've got one sort of head, like a tapered head you can see. These have got a much bigger head. This one, now that you would need a really big hole, like maybe a hole in a boot for a bootlace or something to fit that through. But again, get various sizes, long and short. So I mentioned TPU there, and there are loads and loads of different filaments you can get. The actual plastic that you extrude out and print with. The one that's used the most by far is PLA. That's the one that comes as a little sample with your machine. As I mentioned in the other video, all the figurines and most of the stuff I've just shown you now, these boxes and that, are all done from PLA. And for that purpose, it's fine. But if you want to print a stronger object, or something that's going to stand the weathering better, that won't deteriorate as much, there are loads and loads of alternatives. They're not quite as easy to print with. PLA is like the easy stuff. It's really good. It's got wide temperature range. You don't get many mistakes with PLA. There are other materials. Now, one of them is ABS. You can see on here. It's got ABS Plus. I think it's some sort of marketing thing, that, but ABS. Now, ABS is much, much tougher, more resilient for the weather, but it is harder to print. It's much more sensitive to changes in temperature. So they recommend that if you're printing in ABS, you do it in an enclosure with your 3D printer enclosed in a flexible one that you've made, or solid polycarbonate sheet ones or whatever, to keep that temperature stable. Now, I have tried ABS and I had great success with it. The hardest thing is getting it to stick to the bed. I tried all sorts of stuff, and the only one I could that I got success with was what you call ABS slurry, and that is offcuts of ABS, or you use some of the filament, mix it with acetone, which melts it down, and then you paint that onto your bed.
Inactivity alarm. Inactivity alarm.
Sorry, you may have heard that inactivity alarm. It was the transmitter I showed you earlier. Forgot to turn it off. So, where was I? ABS. I used a thing called ABS slurry, which you use offcuts of this, mixed it up with acetone until you get like a paste, and then you paste that on your bed, or you paste that on top of some builder's tape or whatever on your bed. And it stuck great to that. I had great success with sticking to that. Another disadvantage with ABS is it stinks. When it's printing and the acetone and that, it's not great for your health. So it would be best if you could have like a ventilated place. I used it for just one small print in here, and while I wasn't in, I think it was overnight or whatever, and the temperature was dead stable. I didn't have it in enclosure, and the print came out great, but it's not as easy as PLA, and it's not as friendly to yourself. So that's ABS. Another one is nylon. Now this I have never had success with. You can see there, I just bought half a kilogram. Sorry, not half a kilogram, half a kg, and that I've written it on. I bought that April 2018, so 3 years ago, and it was 17 quid for half a kilogram. So quite expensive, and I thought I'd have a try at it. It's I've not retried it on my new printer, and it probably might print okay because it prints TPU fine. But it's a bit similar in feel to TPU. It's very sort of flexible. But again, it's not supposed to be very easy to print. But it is there available. And if you want to experiment, you can do it. Again, it's got its own properties. As you know, nylon stuff is very, very resilient to weather and wear. So it'd be great. Whereas PLA can be a bit brittle. This one is sort of like one up from PLA, if you like, and it's called PETG. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it. I call it PETG, but PETG, and it's a bit tougher, this, than PLA. So when you do a print, it'll tell you what it recommends to be. If it's going to take a lot of wear, like this opener, and you can see dead flexible on that, but it is harder and harder wearing than standard PLA. So I printed that in PETG, had no problem whatsoever. Other than that, it's pretty similar to print with as PLA. And here is that TPU that I showed you that I printed them other bits. Now this is really flexible, as you can see. And printed a few bits, and you can see I have tons and tons left. Now, I'd never used TPU before, and I'd read all sorts of things that, I'm going to need a better extruder on the CR6 and everything. But as you can see, that part printed perfect on here, on that wheel, and I also did this just to see what it'd be like. And I was never expecting this to work, and it didn't. It wasn't a success as it got to the top, but it's remarkable how good it did work. And it's a vase. Now, I mentioned vases in the first part of this two-part set because they are just a decorative item. I suppose they've got some use, but they're not. They're a decorative item, really. But just for a laugh, I just thought I'd try it from TPU. And don't forget, it's just one continuous extrusion when you're doing a vase. There's no internal structure, honeycomb structure to keep it firm or anything like that. It's just one thing. And obviously, the taller it gets, being flexible, it can move a bit, so you're not going to get great results. And as you can see at the top, it's all coming apart because it didn't stick together because of that. But here, it did perfectly. And it's remarkably good. But like I said, never designed to actually print. That bottom is quite solid. Never designed to print a vase with TPU. It's not something you'd do. But you can see how flexible it is, and it just pings back into shape. But for the stuff that's supposed to be for, like this flatter stuff and the wheel and that, and them handles, absolutely perfect. And the printer printed it perfect without any updated extruder or anything. Just bog standard out of the box. It did then. So that's about it. Almost forgot as well, because I've got them screwed to the wall here, not on the bench. And it's one of my favourite objects as well, so almost forgot to show you this. And it's 2 battery boxes. So I'll just take them off the wall. So this one is AAA. They go in the top there, and you print this in different parts. I did it in contrasting colours. You glue the letter A and the 3 on, and as you pull one out, you just push down at the top and the next one becomes available. So that's in yellow front with a blue lettering and a blue base, and the other one, the AA. So it's A with a 2 on it, with the AA batteries on it. And they've got little keyhole slots, and I've just put some screws in the wall here, and they clip on. And whenever I want a new battery, there they are, nice and easy to get at. This is my favourite by far. It's a lithophane lamp. Now, what a lithophane is, you're best looking it up. If you type in lithophane, I'll put it at the bottom here, how you spell it, on Wikipedia or something, it'll explain what it is. But basically, it prints a sheet. You usually use a white colour. You take a photograph of anything, your family, any object you like. The more contrast in it, the better. So the contrast between the blacks and the whites in it. You don't really want a fuzzy photo, you want something quite nice. So if you can manipulate it in Photoshop or whatever to get loads of contrast. And then you print it in lithophane mode. Again, look it up. I'm not going to go into how you print it. As I mentioned before, these 2-part videos are just showing you what you can actually print. There are a multitude of vids on YouTube on how to do lithophanes, and shown much better than I could show you. But basically, it just prints that photograph in varying thicknesses of plastic, so that the light shining through that plastic, obviously the thicker the plastic, the less light it's going to get through, and that will look dark. A very thin layer of plastic, just 1 or 2 layers thick, will let loads of light through, and that's what gives you the effect of the photo. And it's absolutely amazing. You wouldn't believe, it is just like looking at the original photo if it works out well. Now, as you can see, I did this one, and all it is the frame, the box and everything is all there on Thingiverse, and I just used an LED string light coiled up inside, but you can use any light source you like. Printed this frame, the bits slide in, and because there's 5 exposed sides, I thought what better to do other than the 5 Thunderbirds. Again, absolutely love Thunderbirds, one of the best TV series ever, so I use that. So you can see here, that's Thunderbird 2. Now that's how it looks in the plastic, and you think, oh well, that looks a bit bad, that. It doesn't look like the real Thunderbird 2. And you can't really tell the buildings down below or the grass or anything like that, the clouds. But when you get the light behind it shining through, it's just amazing how it looks. So there you got Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 5, my favourite Thunderbird 4, Thunderbird 3, and on the top, Thunderbird 1. Now, it's really hard. I've filmed this bit I'm going to show you now already, and it's the best I can do. It's really hard getting it to show you what I mean. I'll show you what I mean. If I turn this, plug this in now to show you, and turn it on here. Even if I turn this light off, I'll just turn this light off. So as I turn it on here, it's hard to show you what I mean, but you can see it coming out. But I've filmed it on the bench here. Let's turn this back on. So I filmed it earlier on, and with manual exposure and shutter speed and aperture, trying to get it just right. So excuse this filming. Like I said, it is really, really hard to try and show you the difference between the interior lamp on and the interior lamp off, and as you're adjusting it, you get bands where the shutter speed is coinciding with it all and that. But it's the best I can do, and it shows you what a lithophane looks like. It's way, way better with your natural eyesight than the camera shows. But let's have a look now, and you'll see what I mean. So you can see here in detail, with the light turned off, all that looks like is like a lumpy picture. You can't see any great detail in the cottage or anything like that. But as soon as we turn the light on, you can see the tree branches, the cottage, the clouds in the sky. And that's Thunderbird 1, of course, on the top. As we turn the cube around, this is Thunderbird 3. You can see the LEDs that have got a bit close to the actual side panels there. It's very hard to get an even light all around. I think I'm going to alter this. Put a normal bulb in, but again, you can see with Thunderbird 2, as you turn the light on, all the details come up and everything. And Thunderbird 5, the forgotten Thunderbird. You can see all the LEDs again there. So yeah, I'm going to have to try and sort something better out. But this is my favourite Thunderbird, Thunderbird 4. And you can read the word Thunderbird there, as you see, above the 4. And yet when you turn the lights out, you can't read it at all. It just looks like, again, a lumpy, rough picture. But all that detail comes out. And that's one of the better photos. I think he had the highest sort of contrast of any, really, because of all the marks and the bubbles up the side and everything of Thunderbird 4. And then finally around to Thunderbird 1 on the top again. So yeah, if you've never seen a lithophane before, if you're like me, I was just blown away with how good they are. I've done them for my daughter with some Fortnite themes on. I've done one for my other daughter with Jurassic Park themes on. Like I say, you can use it for family photos. They make great gifts. You can just do curved ones you hold up to the light. And it's a real sort of like talking piece. I'm still fascinated by them, and I think they're absolutely great. So yeah, you can do that, and they're not hard to do if you follow all the steps and do it. I got success right from the start, and that was with my old printer. I've not done any on this printer yet. So again, that is something you can do. And I've included it in this part because a lamp has got a purpose. Tons and tons of lamps on there, different for any theme, any hobby you like, any favourite TV shows, films. There's probably some sort of lamp based on that on Thingiverse. One thing I can't show you, behind me reclining chair, a friend of mine has got it, the little handle that you pull out. I'll take a picture and show you. Here's the picture, you'll see what I mean. So that bit there, he pulled it out the other week, snapped off in his hand. Where would you get one of them from? get in touch with the manufacturer of the chair that you've had for 10 years or whatever. No chance. Went into Thingiverse, typed in reclining armchair, lever. There was one on Thingiverse. Printed it off for him in PETG. He put it on, everything fit like a glove, and he's got that now and again. You can pick any colour you like. I did it in black for him. So there you have it. I think I've covered nearly everything I've printed that's had a use. And like I say, this was part 2, useful items. Check out part 1 of this 2-part series for the ornamental type items. And I hope it's given you some ideas. Like I said, my favourite is still the LITHOPHANE. Absolutely fascinated by the way they work. But yeah, I hope it's given you some ideas and shown that a 3D printer is of some actual use. If you've got design skills and you can use some of the design software, CAD stuff, you can design your own parts. I've been asked to do a holster I made for me EV vehicle charging point. I made it out of aluminium. Again, check out video up here for that. But I've been asked to make it in plastic and sell it, but I haven't got any design skills, and it's a dead easy part for anybody to make. It's just sort of like a curved bit, angled 90 degree with some holes in. That's all you need. If you can do that, you could churn them out and make some money. But above all else, it's really, really good fun. So you've got all your stuff you want to do for your hobbies, all the stuff you want to do around the house, helpful hands, tools, stuff like that, and all your ornaments and things you want to do with it. And the world's your oyster, and there's a vast amount of things out there for you to do. So, like I said, I hope it's been of some help, and I hope I've persuaded you to get one if you're thinking about it. I will thoroughly recommend it. Like I said, I got my first one 3 or 4 years ago, printed with it for about a year, and then sort of like went off it for a while, got into other things, setting up this YouTube channel and finishing the shed off and adding things to it and that, back into radio modelling and that. But then I got back into it and bought this new printer at the beginning of this year, and I'm dead into it again now. So it is a great hobby to have, and thoroughly recommend it. So if you do want to subscribe, click the little picture of the shed here, and I'll have loads more videos coming out on 3D printing, EV cars, tool reviews, all sorts of stuff, anything that takes me fancy. Thanks for watching this one. I'll be along with the next one as soon as I can. Bye for now.